All right, guys, you know what? We have wonderful moments, right? UFC 281 was just a spectacular card, but obviously covering the sport, there's also some very, very uh, sad moments that we experienced, and it was pretty sad yesterday. As we were recapping the events and all the wonderful content on MMA Junkie, and then we came across finding out about the unfortunate passing about Anthony Rumble Johnson, the former UFC, Bellator, and WSOF hard-hitting multiweight. That's right. He started as a welterweight in the UFC. He even fought at heavyweight at WSOF. We knew he was ill for some time. We just didn't know the details, what was exactly happening, and so we didn't know exactly, what his health was like. But man, that one hurt. That one really, really hurt. And you could just tell by the way people reacted on social media. I want to know, what are your thoughts on the passing of Anthony Rumble Johnson? I'm sure you all have a memory of Rumble. Tell us what you're thinking, man.
Oh man, he's always gonna have a soft spot in my heart, dude. That guy's been on MMA Junkie Radio so many times throughout his career, and he always gave us really good interviews. He would answer all the difficult questions. He would sit there with us for 2 hours. But my favorite memory of him, honestly, was we had a little tradition where every time when he won a fight, he would come in studio and he would do a shot. And we did not know this, but Anthony doesn't drink. So we didn't even find this out until like I think the third shot or something, right, George? Where we ran into him like 7 hours later at a party and he was still wobbly. He's like, "What did you give me?" And we just all started laughing. But he was just for being such a big, scary guy, he had a really big heart, man. And fighting wise, this happens very rarely in sports when you look back, but I feel like 40 years from now, when you see his highlights, they're still going to look scary. Whoever the champion is at that time, you're still going to go, that guy would probably knock him out. That doesn't really happen. When you go back and look at old quarterbacks or something, you say, well, they probably wouldn't be able to perform with the defenses of today or whatever. Anthony Johnson will be scary 100 years from now. Great fighter, great guy. I'm going to miss you, bud.
Yeah, for sure. Mike, how about you? You covered AJ for pretty much all of his career as well.
Yeah, I remember even when I was just like a fan, like him coming into the UFC and getting those scary knockouts of like Chad Reinier and just like super quick ones very early in his career in the UFC as a welterweight. And you're just like, man, this guy's going to be such an absolute force in there. And, it wasn't always perfect for him. He had some deficiencies in his fight game. And obviously, the weight cutting stuff was a big narrative in his career. And, also, too, the fact of when he did retire after that title fight loss to Daniel Cormier the second time, I think he was one of the few fighters that kind of had the self-awareness to know that, my time is kind of over. This isn't what I want to be doing. And he didn't just keep pushing forward for like the paycheck and all that stuff. And I know he ultimately did come back for the one fight in Bellator, which would obviously be his final fight. And that's kind of one of my memories that stands out from him because I had the chance to be in Florida at, then Sanford MMA, now Killcliff. And I interviewed him like a month before. At this time, he was supposed to fight Yoel Romero still. Obviously, that got changed very close to the fight. He fought Jose Augusto, but he seemed to just be in such a good place. And this was only like 17 months ago at this point. He was in incredibly good shape. His spirits were so high. He was so happy to be back, so happy to get a fight like Yoel Romero, who like the fans were just off the wall. Remember how excited we were for that thing? We were just like, this is going to be amazing. Probably one of the most anticipated Bellator fights they've ever put together. And obviously we didn't get it, but yeah, I just remember him being, in such good shape. He's like, take photos of me in this physique. Cause I remember I'd see him, not that long ago before that at like BKFC, and he looked incredibly out of shape, right? Like he looked like he had blown up to twice his size. And we were like, what happened to Anthony Johnson? He's loving life in his retirement, but he was able to get back to, being in a very good condition. And it's just kind of shocking to see that was only like 17 months ago, how poorly his health kind of deteriorated over this time. And, I talked to Scott Coker back in January about him, just wondering what the latest was. And he seemed to give a pretty grim update, saying that fighting does not need to be his priority. He needs to focus on health because there's so much else to life at this point beyond competition. And, I guess that should have been foreshadowing on how serious his situation was to this point. And to get that news, despite knowing that he was obviously unwell to a degree. I believe our colleague Danny Segura kind of said in the Slack chat last night that he had seen him at like a BKFC event recently, and he was looking somewhat unwell. And as you kind of hear from other people around him, that seemed to be a similar case in recent weeks and months. And for it to just happen this way, kind of come out via a few fighters tweeting about it, and that snowballs and gets confirmed. It's just really sad, man. A loss for the community for sure. And obviously, definitely one of the all-time great knockout artists in the history of the sport. What he did to Glover Teixeira, what he did to so many other guys was just remarkable in there. There probably won't be a few people who kind of have that one-touch power like he did. So he will absolutely be missed.
For sure. Steffi in the chat saying the good go young. Joker Boom says, even though he never met him, he knows he's going to miss him. Fada, share your thoughts on the passing of Anthony Rumble Johnson.
Yeah, very unfortunate. Of course, you kind of shows you never know what people are really going through. Like we knew he was ill, but it was a while where we didn't really get an update on him. And then just to, like Mike said, for us to hear on Twitter, it's always a shock. I mean, we lost Elias Theodoro shortly before that, and now Rumble Johnson. It's just super sad, and especially that he looked like he was ready to come back. He had that knockout over Jose Augusto in the quarterfinals of the Grand Prix, and it just looked like things were hopefully going to get back on track for him, but unfortunately they didn't. But I mean, he's had so many memorable moments throughout his career. If I just look at his fight career, I think of the fight against Alexander Gustafsson, that knockout over Gus. Gus was coming off of that loss to John Jones, a fight that a lot of people felt like he won. He rebounded with a finish of Jimmy Manuel, and then Anthony Johnson just goes to Sweden and silences the crowd with a quick knockout. Just the power he had, and was similar to what I was talking about Alex Pereira, how Alex Pereira had 25 minutes to show that power off. So does Rumble Johnson. He had Daniel Cormier on skates. Whoever he fought, you knew that you would always give him a chance just because of how powerful he was, and that one-punch knockout power, and the knockout that Mike talked about against Glover Teixeira. Just so many incredible moments throughout his career, and just what could have been. So it looked like he was looking for kind of like a second chapter at Bellator to kind of get back on track in terms of his career. So just very unfortunate the way everything went down. And of course, he'll be missed. He's going to have highlights that are going to be playing on for 100 years to come.
Yeah. One of the scariest times that Dana White ever did one of those face-offs was because Rumble and John Jones had prepackaged, I guess, a little bit of a scuffle, but I'm sure a lot of it had to do with just that one punch power that Anthony has, and having to get in between him and somebody else. That's a scary moment. My moment for me is I was at the Nogueira fight, the Little Nog fight, and vicious KO. And I've seen a lot of these events where afterwards everybody goes back to the fighter hotel, and people will commiserate, be together, and a lot of fighters that lose will also show up and still thank fans or just hang out. Some that have even been knocked out. So there's different degrees of being knocked out. But I remember Nogueira walking through the doors, as they opened up there in the hotel at San Jose, and he was still being helped hours later by two people. Looked like he had an ice pack on his head. It honestly just looked like a car had just hit him outside the parking lot. But that's just the type of power that AJ packed. It was some serious power. And then I remember one time we were interviewing him, I don't remember exactly how it went down, but I probably asked one of my dumb questions, you gonna party after that big win or something like that? And he told me, of course, man. What do I look like? Boo Boo the Fool? Oh, I was using that one for the next couple of months. That cracked me up. Boo Boo the Fool. But AJ was just, like Go said, very personable, so violent. Obviously, he could get down and crack. But once it was all over and you just wanted to have a chat, you could have a chat, and talk about anything. He really loved football. He loved Georgia football. And this would be some of the years that he could really be flexing, because Georgia football is obviously on top with their national championship, their #1 ranking. Goes, you and I saw him after the Billy Idol concert at the Palms, and he was in pretty good spirits, still holding some pretty good shape. But like I say, just great athlete, even better human being, and he's definitely going to be missed. From the MMA Junkie family, we extend our condolences to the Johnson family, their friends, teammates, everybody. A lot of people loved Rumble. He's definitely going to be missed.